right, welcome to the February 28, 2017 meeting of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen. We'll ask if our Assistant Town Administrator, Diane Morse, could please read through the agenda.
Good evening. Tonight, the board will vote to approve or amend the agenda, add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. We'll start off with a public comment. Sharon McPherson is here, our Finance Director, with a library warrant review, a consideration of support of town meeting articles, an update from the CM&D Director and Facilities Manager, Sean Colleen, and a board discussion. There is a set of minutes from November 8th, and then the board will go into executive session and not return to public session.
Okay, very good. We have a motion to approve that
So move.
in a second.
Second.
Anybody had anything to add to that? Okay, all in favor? Aye, all right, let's, while we're waiting for Paul to get in here and get settled, let's pick off a couple of things. We've got a meeting of November 8th. We've got minutes on the meeting of November 8th. We can approve those. Does anybody have any comments on those minutes? I think they're very well done.
Anything, Chuck?
Move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. All right, those are approved, and we are pretty much caught up with minutes, aren't
We
we?
certainly are.
Look at us. What role models we are.
Oh, I'm sorry, I found one typo,
I'm
but
sorry, it's
Too
too
late.
late.
here you go, madam.
Show Diane. Okay,
You're welcome.
we have no public comment today. So Sharon,
Yes.
what can you tell us about the library
Okay.
and the other financial matters?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I can tell you, as you can see, it's been quite busy. Lots of movement out there. So since we last met, we have incurred expenses of $204,565.50. The bulk of that, almost $17,000 for Beacon Architectural and $167,000 for Five Star, and then some other smaller invoices. So year-to-date, we have incurred $2,549,996 in expenditures, and they have been paid for using donations, and also to date, we have currently used up all of our grant money that we've received. So we are expecting, we have a remaining balance of $5.2 million that will be funded through the donations and grant monies, and also borrowing. And that will be the last ditch effort, is the borrowing. We'll hold off as long as we can with that.
All right, and Sean, you're going to talk to us later, but in terms of the status of this, is this on track in terms of the budget, to your knowledge?
I'm not going to speak that much to the budget, no.
Okay, all right.
I'd let the library make that presentation.
Okay.
I'll speak to us more about the mechanics of how that relates to some of our site facilities, like parking lot and fire tank locations.
The last time they were in here, the library, they said they've got somebody who's keeping track of where things are with the budget and with the expenditures. I just, one reason for this review is to make sure we keep, a closer connection to the project so that we don't get to a point where either there's a funding gap or there's some other issue that becomes a problem. I mean, so far, the last time we talked to them a couple of weeks ago, everything seemed to be on track. I guess maybe it was last month. But it's helpful to understand whether we are, at schedule or not on the budget versus the status of the job.
Well, for the Five Star, which is the big contract, looking at that contract, it says that the change orders to date are $66,000.
Okay.
So, and that's all I can tell you. I mean, I can give you copies of this so you can look at it, but right now,
All
what
right.
I'm seeing is it's trending well. So, but
All right. I figure you or the library would tell us if there was a big issue.
nothing yet.
Paul, welcome. We just picked off a couple of quick things. I think next We've got scheduled consideration of support for town meeting articles. We could do that, or we could do well, let's do that, and then we'll do the CM&D update after that. So we've got 5 articles on the special town meeting warrant. We've got 2 that pertain to EA development and a rezoning. We've got,
We've already voted all of them except for Article 2.
I don't think we formally voted 1 or 2, have we?
We didn't vote one.
You didn't vote 1 because you wanted to see the wording.
Right. We didn't vote
Spoken
1, we didn't
support,
vote
basically,
2, we did vote 3, and I don't know that we voted 4 or 5, did we?
I believe we did.
Yeah.
Actually,
We did take a vote on
we did.
those?
We voted on everything other than
Right.
1 and 2. Okay, good.
Yep.
All right.
Yes, the idea was to see a plan, and I understand a plan has been.
Plan's been proposed. We've got a big package
I
here,
didn't
Paul, with
get it.
that.
I didn't get it.
It's in it's in your package, it's there. It's also been circulated by multiple emails from various sources.
Give them a color.
Here, play it. Good. Looks much nicer in color.
So just to be clear, because so many citizens are confused, there are 2 projects that are located next door to each other. But the project that we're talking about are not both projects. We're talking about only one of those 2 projects. And so most of the questions I've gotten is about a project that's not before town meeting, not the project that is before town meeting. So, as I see it from my perspective, the most important thing we can do is to clarify the confusion that exists in the public mind, that this is like all one big thing, and all the issues that people have with the other projects somehow are part of this project, and they're not. This is a standalone project all by itself. And is that a fair statement?
Yeah, well, I think it's a fair statement, but we've got a developer with 2 parcels next to each other, and this is one of the parcels. So,
So just because it's the same developer doesn't mean that whatever issues people have about the other development has anything to do with this development. That's the point I'm making.
okay, anybody have any other comments?
Well, you have a planning board member that looks
Yeah,
like she's eager
Mary Ann does.
to make a statement on that.
Don't all speak at once, really. Okay. You want to come up here, if you, that way folks, the mythical public who Paul keeps talking about can hear you.
Don't you watch every
Everyone.
cable broadcast?
Well, you're right, of course, Paul. The article pertains to the, to Meadowbrook Commons, the 104 Coolidge only. However, it's impossible to completely ignore the project that's next door, because the 2 projects together are the rationale for proposing the EA project at 104, because the EA project is less impactful on a large property at 104, but the companion project, let's call the rental project, that puts us in much more solid, safe harbor so that we can control 40B developments elsewhere in town. The reason that they're inevitably tied together in our thinking is that if the EA project is denied at town meeting, the developer plans to go ahead with a big 40B project on that site. And if he does that, because of water and sewer likely limitations, he will not be able to proceed with the planned 88 rental unit project. the 88 rental unit project is really important to the town to get us to our 10% over a longer period of time. So you're absolutely right. The article pertains to the EA project, but the thinking around it includes both projects. That's why, as we've put out information sheets, we do mention the rental project. I just got one that was circulated after this Council on Aging meeting, I think, this morning. I don't know who wrote this, but it's very well done. The planning board has put out explanations of each article on one-page sheets, laying out the thinking, basically. We find that's the only way that it can make sense to people. Yes, the yellow sheets that you have there. And there's now also this two-sided, one-page, two-sided summary that I got just today in an email that it was on Nextdoor, actually. That's an even, I think, more user-friendly explanation of why they go together. So that's the thinking. We'll emphasize when we present this, of course, that the vote is simply whether or not to approve the EA zoning and the project. But the ramification is if people vote no, then we're assured of a much bigger 40B project on that site that's already been applied for to the state.
If I could, I had a couple of other questions.
Sure.
I got one comment, though, before she jumps off that. I wonder if there's somewhere on the town's website that all that information might be available.
Yes, it is. Thanks for
Want to plug
the.
that?
Yes, thanks for the opportunity to advertise. On the town website, under, it's actually right up on top on the town website in the list of, current issues. Town meeting 2017 is right on top. If you go there, there are two planning board information sheets, planning board explanation of Article 1 and Article 2. And it's laid out pretty clearly, I think.
As well as the advisory report
And
from our public hearings also.
Maybe we could pull the COA document into that as well.
yes, we should. It's very good. I mean, the challenge has been that it's a complex situation. You can't explain it in two sentences. So, and you can't put it in one paragraph or a couple of bullet points. So the challenge has been to get people to actually read these things. And any help that you can give us would be much appreciated.
Marianne, could we see that?
Yes, I only have
Document?
this copy because I just printed it before I came.
Promise to give it back to you. I'll arm wrestle anybody and we'll get it back to you.
Sure.
So, Paul, you had some comments?
Well, more in the nature of questions.
Sorry, I would have got it.
I just want another sort of basic point. Because again, the people who are talking to me are confused. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but Article 1 is basically to fix language in our bylaw, something that we would do anyway. It's not project-specific.
That's right. It's not
But-
project-specific.
The project that is being proposed is just Article 2. In other words, people can vote for Article 1, and if they're not happy with the project, they can vote no on Article 2, but still vote on yes on Article 1. They are not, it's not mandatory that they have to vote, if they're against Article 2, it's not mandatory that they have to vote no on everything.
No, it's not. They can vote for Article 1 and vote no on Article 2. If they,
Article 2 basically is a preliminary development plan under the EA zoning bylaw, which is subject to town approval. The planning board's initial review of it is that it provides enough information that the town can take a meaningful vote. What we're going to be voting on in Article 2 is the preliminary development plan, but Paul's absolutely right. The two, you could certainly vote yes on Article 1 and no on Article 2, or vice versa.
Vice versa, probably not.
Probably not because of the 1 mile change, but I don't want to get into the
That's right.
detail. Yep.
So another question is that I got a request from neighbors on Meadowbrook that they don't want an access connection to Meadowbrook. So my first question would be, which project are they talking about?
They're talking about the EA, or Elderly Affordable Project, at 104 Coolidge, that abuts Meadowbrook.
All right, does that provide, in this drawing, does it provide access to Meadowbrook?
Only emergency access. I should call on John because he has a letter from Ben Stevens, and we've discussed this at length. It definitely will not be regular access. It'll be closed off, and it won't even be used for construction.
That's a perfect answer.
The difference is if it's, so Article 1 is for EA anywhere in town. It removes the 1 mile restriction, which means it allows the town to offer an alternative to a 40B and compete with the developer, or offer the developer an alternative, so that any 40B proposal in town, at least the town will have an option to encourage or to consider a EA project instead of a 40B. Right now, that can't, without Article 1 passing, a developer can't do a EA project more than 1 mile from town, which means we don't have the option of converting an unwanted 40B into something that might be very advantageous to the town. So that's Article 1. It's related to Article 2. Article 2 is dependent on it, but it's a good article all on its own. We, the planning board, recommend Article 1 because it gives us some options that we wouldn't otherwise have.
Perfect.
So on Meadowbrook Road, the abutters came to a few meetings of the planning board and are very concerned about construction, vehicles during construction, and also traffic from the project once the project's up and running. The developer wrote a letter, which is on the town website also. You can also see it in the same place. On the front page of the town website under Town News tab, you'll see the special town meeting, and it's in that section. The letter states that the developer, subject to what fire and police might require, the developer won't use it for construction. He thought about it, said he would work around using that, so he will not use that for construction, and that he would restrict it and gate it for emergency access only once the project is completed. So that's in direct response to those folks in Meadowbrook that asked about that.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Anybody else have questions, comments?
I have a question. I saw an earlier draft of the advisory committee report that compared the estimated tax revenues and costs to the town, comparing the 40B that is on file versus the EA, but it was a preliminary draft.
That is in the final report.
And the cost that I saw was that if the 40B, if we turn down the EA, the 40B would be larger. It would have 264 total bedrooms with, if you estimate costs at $13,000 to $15,000 per students, with 60 students added, we're talking about $780,000 to $900,000 in additional costs. If 100 students are added, it's $1.3 million to $1.5 million. And the EA, which is going to be age restricted, doesn't guarantee there won't be any students, but the best projections are it's very unlikely, and that would generate a net to the town of between $800,000 and $900,000. So one is per year. So one is revenue negative to the tune of $780,000 to $1.5 million, and one is revenue positive of about $850,000. So
That's why advisory voted 8-0 to support possibly, I guess, vote on Article 2.
If that's true, then this is very unclear, because what this says is there's, under the 40B proposal, the revenue generated by the development would be 960, and the increased school costs would be 780 to 900, which still makes that a revenue positive the way this is read. So if it's actually revenue negative,
I've got to look at
this
the-
should be
I'm sorry,
corrected.
I don't have the report in front of me.
Okay. But I mean, we've now heard it from two different angles and from Frank.
Well, it says would be offset by increased school costs. So it's saying that as a negative.
It's saying 960 would be offset by an increase of 780 in school costs. So 780 is an increase and 960 is tax
An
revenue.
increase in
That's actually
cost.
what our report says. It says property taxes of 960 with costs of 780 and 900. If you have 60 students, if 100 students, then it becomes revenue.
Yeah, just be careful when you're explaining it, because that's an easy trap to fall into. It makes it sound like you're trying to mislead people that it's actually a
Right,
big
but
revenue
we
difference.
have both in our report, that if
Yeah.
it's 60 students, here it is. If it's-
No, I'm not saying-
This is based on 40Bs, the history of, you know, what's happened in towns where these. have been
Right.
done, so.
No, that makes sense. It's still a more favorable financial proposal.
I'll say that tomorrow night here at Town Hall at 7 o'clock, the planning board has a question and answer session at 7 o'clock here tomorrow night. So we can, if anybody has any more questions, we can certainly cover them tomorrow night. I don't know.
John, has the developer made a commitment to build the 88 units apartment if the EA is approved? Do we have that in? You said that there's a letter from the developer posted on the website. Is that in that letter?
Yeah, there's two parts to it. He made a commitment to build the EA, if the EA is passed, he made a commitment to build the EA project, and the apartment size would then be, the EA project would take precedent, but the apartment size may be limited to water if it's not expected to. So he's made a commitment to do that. If Natick water or if water from outside Sherborn is brought in, he's made a commitment to not build an EA passes. He's made a commitment to not build the 40B at the 104 site, meaning he's committed to building the over 55, the EA project, and build the apartments.
That was one of the most confusing answers I've ever heard.
Let me try again.
You gotta, I have no idea what you just said, but
So-
it didn't sound good.
So the basic answer is yes, he's committed to building the EA project, and he's committed to building the apartments. I think that's probably all I should say.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's if there's opportunity to get water from outside the site, then he's committed to building the EA project and not at 104 Coolidge and not a 40B there.
I've heard some speculation that that the town water from either, municipal water either from Natick or Framingham would then be used to connect to downtown Sherborn. Is there anything in the letter agreement with the developer that addresses that issue?
Yeah, that was brought up as a concern, and his letter says he won't allow it. He also went on to explain that physically the consecutive water system that would be used brings water in through a small pipe, goes through up to a storage tank, and feeds the project. It cannot feed any significant volume outside the project. It just physically doesn't have the capability, and he's, in his letter, he's saying he would not allow it. Just mechanically, the plumbing there doesn't allow it.
And who actually signs that intermunicipal agreement?
Well, the town has to agree to it, I mean, in the Natick and the Board of Selectmen have to agree to
Right.
that.
So it's not actually him anyway.
No, but it's his project. If the town said, we want you to do something on your land, then the town would have to go.
Right. But Natick would also have to agree to it, and
Yeah,
odds are they're not gonna agree to just run a water main to downtown Sherborn.
right.
I think Chuck's being a little nicer maybe than I would have been. There was a very irresponsible email that I saw that was circulated that said that this board favored water because it wanted water to run to the center of town. I'll just say very frankly for myself, and anybody else can chime in. I have no interest in seeing Natick water run to the center of Sherborn. Absolutely no interest. I don't think it's a good idea.
I would agree with that.
The planning board, that
Yeah.
has never been ours.
It's never been discussed at this board.
So, I mean, it shows you the lengths some people will go to in order to oppose something, but if somebody's saying something, check with the source that they're trying to quote.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're trying to address everybody's concerns. Change is difficult, and if we just try to stop all change, change is going to happen anyway. In this case, we have a choice to either choose to approve an EA project at 104 Coolidge or choose to not to. Either way, there will be change. So, the town, the vast majority in town would much rather guide change than just simply react to it. So this is a chance for the town to really guide change.
Yeah, agreed. And in terms of the potential for a 40B, I think there may be some people who think that if a 40B is proposed there, if the EA is turned down, if 40B is proposed, that the town can fight that off or fend it off. I mean, I'll also speak for myself. I don't have any interest in seeing the town spend money to fight a 40B after the town votes not to do a project that's, by all financial measures, much better than a 40B for the town. So if that's somebody's theory, I think they should probably come up with a new theory. It doesn't make any sense for the town to be in a fight off a 40B at this site role if this EA goes down at town meeting.
I agree completely. It's been brought up before, and it's been pointed out by several people that we've not stopped a 40B in town. We've negotiated and changed the numbers slightly, but we've not stopped a 40B. So if we were willing to fight it, the chances are we're not going to stop it anyway.
In one case, we negotiated and fought and made the numbers higher, which I
Right.
think offsets the time we negotiated and made the numbers
Right.
lower.
Yeah.
Be
It's
Whitney
pretty much a
Farms.
zero-sum game
Yeah,
from
the
Sherborne's
developer
history.
has the opportunity to do a 40B there at at the 104 Coolidge. They have the opportunity to do that. And with conversations, the developer has submitted this plan to do something different. And that's, to do something different than a 40B, it's a win-win for the town and for the developer to do it this way. If we vote no, developers can do a 40B.
Well, there's a pending 40B for this specific property in lieu of the EA. So, I mean, there's already one pending that the developers agreed to withdraw. And I'd just point out, Mike, that the project that ended up coming back with more units was Whitney Farms, after the town spent a fair amount of money. The state agency that adjudicates these 40B cases rules in favor of the developer 90 to 95% of the time. The mandate of the statute is to increase affordable housing. Not surprisingly, the state agency rules in favor of 40B developers 90 to 95% of the time.
Yeah.
So John, one other point that probably is helpful for people to hear tonight, but also at your hearing, this vote is not the final word on this development. The planning board still gets to craft a permit, put conditions in, put in binding requirements to tie the developer to the program that the planning board approves and the town votes in concept, right? So this is just the first of a two-step process.
Yep, it's called the preliminary development plan. That's right. And then after the town approves it, then we go through the full Sherborn governed rules and regulations, the process that we use for Sherborn projects instead of the state rules. It means that it goes through the full rigor of the Sherborn rules and regulations. And at the end, then if everything is satisfactory, then the planning board then would vote on a final development plan, and then it gets built again through all Sherborn's rules and regulations. It's a big advantage over the 40B.
I should add, in addition to our rules and regulations, the special permit process allows us to negotiate a lot of design details and make the project look as good as we can make it look. And that's particularly important. It's important for both, but the developer has agreed to work with the planning board on designing it to the best that we can together to make it acceptable to the town.
Do we have a motion on this article for the board support, or?
So I think we already voted to support Article 1, but if we haven't,
I'm pretty sure we didn't vote to support Article 1 yet. We didn't have the language on Article 1.
Right. Mike was concerned about wanting to see the final language, so my recollection is we didn't vote it, but no harm in.
are you satisfied with the language of Article 1 at this point?
Yeah, because I've seen this. This is actually what I wanted to see, was the actual plan.
That's
That's
really Article 2.
That's Article 2.
So can I move to a favorable action on Article 1?
Second.
You can, yep. It's good. You're right, Chuck. I was looking for language on 1 and a plan on 2.
Right.
Okay. All in favor of 1? All right, so that's a 4-0 support. Now, Article 2.
So Article 2, which is the EA
It's this plan, it's
rezoning.
what we were talking about.
There's two parts to it. One is to take that parcel and rezone it to the EA district, and the second is to give preliminary approval, or what's the word, for the concept plan that's been distributed. Is that-
I think you're voting whether or not to support Article 2, which includes the plan. The town actually makes the final vote on the preliminary development plan. So the approval of the preliminary development plan is a town two-thirds vote. Is that the question you're asking?
Yeah, well, no, yes, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase the motion.
I think
The
Paul's,
wording in the article is preliminary development plan approval.
and I think Paul's
Okay.
point is it's doing two things. It's rezoning a specific parcel of land to the EA district, and it's doing that for the purpose of approving a preliminary development plan on that land. So that's the two components you were talking
So
about.
I would move favorable action on Article 2 as just described by our chair.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of that? All right, good, 4-0. And do we have any others we need to vote? I don't think so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's good.
I would just add one comment, which is the special town meeting on December 6th at Pine Hill. This EA approval for both of these, Articles 1 and 2, requires a two-thirds vote. So it's a very important vote, particularly in terms of the impact on 40B projects down the road. This EA project is a known quantity. The 40B that's submitted is a known quantity. What's unknown is all the other 40Bs that will come if we don't hit the safe harbor of 10% subsidized housing inventory under 40B. That's the safe harbor. So it's an important vote, and I would urge everyone to make every effort to be at the special town meeting.
If they're in favor of the development.
No, I didn't.
Well, I thought you were headed that way, Chuck.
You're reading my mind, but no, that's not, I'm not including that limitation.
Okay.
At some point, we need to talk about the presentations on Article 4 and 5.
Well, that would be now. We should talk about it since I don't think we have another opportunity after this. So what's your thinking?
So we voted opposition to both Article 4 and Article 5. So I'm hoping the chair will
Present what?
Something on our behalf?
present on our behalf for both of those articles. The issue, assuming that's agreeable to you, the issue is that there's no real proponent on Article 5. And so the time slot that's allocated for a proponent for Article 5, I don't think we should choose to exercise. But I think at some point it makes sense to draw the distinction between Article 4 and Article 5 and explain why Article 5 is on the warrant, because it is on the warrant because the Board of Selectmen put it on the warrant.
Well, how's the town moderator planning to organize this, do you know?
From our motions meeting, I think she's gonna plan to have a discussion similarly to the way that we had it at the advisory hearing, where we're gonna discuss both articles at once before votes are taken. So that would allow people to compare the two. Now, the motion on the floor will be just based on our advisory vote, will be to take no action on Article 4, so that'll be the first motion made, and I think the discussion from there will be on
But she'll open the discussion to both articles.
That was the plan, right, Diane? But
Okay.
Diane was in the meeting as well, so,
Yep, that's what she's going to do.
yeah.
So, yeah, then I can speak against both articles, but I also think Chuck, anybody else who wants to speak should chime in. It's not gonna take all our time.
If Article 4 gets turned down, I'm not sure we should say anything about Article 5.
Oh, I don't think at that point we need to, but I think what.
And their motion
what
is
he's
to
saying
take no action
is
on five, right?
that Mary intends to have a discussion of both articles up front before the
I'm
vote on
sorry,
4.
I missed that.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
that's,
Okay.
but that's the important distinction.
Right, yep.
So would it make sense for me at some point to speak about the comparison between Article 4's language and Article 5's language, or will you do that?
Oh, I can do that, but I'm gonna oppose both of them.
Yes,
And the board was opposed, I think unanimously to both
Yes.
of them. Yeah, okay.
yes. But I think someone needs to say we put
Why it's on
Article
there,
5
yeah,
on
yeah,
in case
yeah.
there is a majority of people who feel it ought to be a recall. We wanted to give them a reasonable recall to vote on.
A less unreasonable recall.
Right, less than.
Okay,
So you'll handle all that, and I don't need to get into the comparison, you'll do that?
we'll see if you don't do it, but that's okay. I'll speak to it. And you should feel free to chime in, anybody else who wants to. Okay, let's go to the next thing, which is,
Will you be speaking about Article 1 and 2? On the board, at least on our votes? I think you should.
I can at least say how we came out, yeah. Yeah, and that we favor the projects and the changes. But I think Chuck will probably want to say something, knowing Chuck.
Yeah, I think these are both really important votes. I would
Paul might want
love
to
to
say
have the
something. You might
opportunity to
Please
say
do.
something.
Okay.
Well, I think it's important, whoever speaks, that make it clear what exactly is Article 1 and what is not Article 1.
I'm really hoping that John does that, or whoever's presenting for the planning board.
Mary Ann Nutra is presenting Article 1, is my understanding.
Okay. But hopefully, we helped them hone
I
their
think,
presentation a little.
From what I've heard, I think the developer is going to be there.
Is Ben gonna be allowed to speak?
I think so.
Interesting,
He
okay.
has a presentation, he's given a video,
Oh, okay. Giving a video?
a 5-minute video.
Wow, we're on new
I
ground
think,
here.
I think it's important for at least somebody, if not several, from this board
Say
to
something.
at least pick up on why we voted to
Yeah,
support.
I think that's multiple people, absolutely.
I agree.
All right, let's move on to update from our CMD director, facility manager, and board discussion. Yeah, CMD director and facilities manager.
Paul, you have one of these?
Are you supposed to have another hat that you put on or something
I do.
before you run over
I-
there? Okay,
I did that on the way over here.
Once again.
all right. Thank you for coming in for the presentation.
Thanks for having me. Since it was a short meeting, we thought we'd fill a time slot and utilize this to update the board on at least some of what I've been working on collectively with Diane and Jeannie and my group at Butler Street. A lot of the projects we kickstarted were facilities related. Probably the most pressing is the police station. As you guys know, there's a roof project and an HVAC project. It's too late in the year. The timing doesn't work to do a heating and air project right now, and we needed to kind of regroup on where we were going to go with that. So we went forward with the roof, dismantled the air conditioners that are there, so we have access to the flat roof, and that the bids are due back this week, and we plan on that construction in the next couple of weeks. It's really only about a 2 or 3 day project, so
Okay.
we think we can be successful on that. We've also hired a consultant the chief and I met with to go through the whole building. There's been some issues with the way they're using the building and how the heating and air system is ventilating, and possible moisture issues. As you add computers and servers and everything to a tight building, you end up with problems where rooms are overheating, and the chief's office is tied into conference rooms, so one's 80, the other one's 60. We want to try and fix all that. We don't want to just replace the system and have the same inherent problems that the building had to begin with.
What's the time frame on that, Sean?
So we plan over the next month or so to have the engineer go through the building, go through the original plans, do some legwork to specify the system so that probably late winter, we can put it out to bid, the project, and then hopefully time the project where we can hit it. There's kind of a sweet spot of when you can take a building like that and almost go with no heat or air conditioning at the same time. Luckily, there's some units there that are self-sufficient in the server room and where the 911 console is, so that they'll still be able to condition that air. But, there's other parts of the building that won't have heat or air or ventilation, and the windows don't open on that building, so we gotta time it just right. We gotta kind of nail it. So it's mid-spring. I don't know the exact date, but that's our plan.
Okay.
And again, the roof will be done prior to winter, because it has some leaking and ice issues that have plagued it for years.
Have you gotten any bids yet?
Bids?
Yeah, on the roof? You said roof bids are due this week. Any come in already, or?
No, they're due Thursday or Friday. Not sure the exact date, but, so they'll all come in at the same time, or at least we'll do a bid opening. We had 3 contractors walk through, so we're confident we'll have 3 prices. Town Hall, we've just done some minor, we did kind of an emergency masonry repair. And again, there's constant work that's overlapping, as everyone can tell, with the library. So we're trying to keep an eye on that as best we can, because this building has a lot of activity every day. So disruptions can be quite the headache. The fire station is another big project that we're just kicking off now. There's some engineering and architect work that has to happen to make modifications to the building, to replace all the doors and get the ceilings lifted up. We have the professionals, we're just working on getting the contract signed, and they'll start working on that. Again, not something we could do in the middle of winter, because you gotta keep the building heated, so you can't just rip all the doors off the front of the building. So that's a spring project as well.
When you say lift the ceilings up, what does that entail?
So what happened that's not a new building, that was a rebuild.
Right.
We basically kept the shell of a
I
building
remember, yeah.
and built up over it. So there's 2 structures within one. It's plagued us a little bit because the ceiling was very low in the old building. We kept that, which makes an awkward height door, and then has some steel beams that go through that limit the height of the truck in the middle bay, and of course the ambulance. Can't even buy an ambulance that would fit through that door anymore, so we knew that the ambulance is in the other bay, where engine 4 normally would be. So what'll happen is all 3 doors come off. They're beyond their life anyway, they're falling apart. And the 2 right-hand bays, as you look, that whole ceiling structure, which was it was also the second floor, is somewhat independent of the floor that's up there, that's of the new building. They just share a couple of posts. The engineers just have to verify that everything's gonna be structurally sound as that happens. And it'll basically get cut out from inside, peeled off. The front wall was framed in a way that the new door openings will fit, and take place, but it's still, it wouldn't be worth trying to do the winter work and keep the building from freezing,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of equipment that's in there that can't go outside in the cold weather that could in the spring.
So what's the timing on that spring?
That's spring as well. And then, so really the biggest thing lately since I started has been keeping a thumb on the library project. As we know, there's a lot happening. And again, there's a lot of shared site work that's town-related. One of our big projects with the capital that we voted for this year was a generator for town hall. That's now gonna work out to become a combined generator between town hall and the library. There's a good bit of cost savings, we think, for the library, to share that generator and share the transformer that's on that side. Utility-wise, it helps out a lot. As we all know, they've had to move where they were gonna put the fire tank. There's a 20,000-gallon water storage tank just for the sprinkler system that's going to the library. It was gonna go between the two buildings, police station and town hall. It's now probably gonna end up on the kind of the west side of town hall, under what became more parking towards the caustic property. It's a better site. It gets it out of the protection zone of the well. So we've been going through a lot of meetings with that. We don't quite have DEP approval to start yet. They still have the cease and desist. That should hopefully be lifted optimistically in the next few days. And then they can finalize the designs, get some cost comparisons. So the library can kick off ordering several things, and we'll know what our cost is gonna be for the generator and the associated work in this building.
Why is the cease and desist order still in effect?
Thank you.
It seemed like,
What's that?
sorry, why is the cease and desist order still in effect? I mean, I thought from papers that I've seen across my desk that things had been addressed. We had Whitewater do its work and all of that stuff.
So there was two issues. One thing led to the cease and desist, which was the hit of bacteria in the well. But there was two issues in DEP's eyes. One, what caused that? And we found that there was a handful of deficiencies with the well that needed to be repaired. And so we did that over the summer, maybe early fall. But then there's still site issues that they weren't happy about with the design and the future work that would be the trenching and the excavation work for the library's fire tank, the generator that was supposed to go over there. So we satisfied DEP as far as getting back on the well. There's no tank out there, we're drinking the water from that well. But the design needs to be approved by DEP. So there was a little bit of back and forth of what will DEP approve, and now the engineers have to design some of it. And we're waiting on a conceptual, yes, that'll be acceptable. Because technically, you wouldn't be allowed to do anything within 100 feet of the well. The corner of this building is within 100 feet of the well. The generator, our generator's within 100 feet of that well. So to say that we want to upgrade our generator, sure, we should be able to, but DEP has to approve that. It's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to allow that. They verbally said, yeah, we're going to let you do that, but there's work. The engineers have to do all that site design.
Well, I had the same impression, and maybe it was that Whitewater was focused on the well issues, but I thought it was imminent after that last meeting. That was a while ago. That was a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
thanks, Sean. That's helpful.
So that's where we are with the library. In case anyone didn't notice, in the dark, the parking lot got paved today. Half of the police station parking lot and the whole loop. It's been expanded. You couldn't really tell in the dark, but the loop is now expanded so you can do angle-in parking, which I was going to take the lead and show everyone tonight, but in the dark, I think it probably would have created havoc. We'll get some temporary lines out there. This is just the binder course. The rest of it will be done in the spring. I was insistent that we not have a dirt parking lot for the winter because we could have never plowed it. Road work we're winding down, but we did actually do a bunch of work today on Green Lane. We'll do a little bit of work on Rockwood Street. Prior to winter, it's not a good idea to have those roads in disrepair. Green Lane was getting pretty bad. Not everyone drives down it, but if you do, you knew how bad it was. So we brought in a lot of gravel and utilized a machine. Trask has machines up there because they're clearing lots, so they came out and helped us compact the road. it should be quite a bit better, at least to get us through the winter. You probably noticed that trucks have been running around cleaning catch basins. We're at the tail end of the season. We're lucky to catch them before they shut down for the winter, but we need to do that to satisfy our stormwater permit. Needs to be done annually. And we're also working with environmental engineers to work on what's called a BUD, which is a beneficial use determination, that DEP would approve for either easing the restrictions or finding some reuses for the materials that we take out of both the catch basins and street sweepings. We spend a fair amount of money every year to get rid of those materials.
Is that something other places are doing already, Sean?
Yeah, many towns are. You find it more in the rural towns. The urban centers are pretty well restricted because they don't have as much sand, because most towns don't sand. So the street sweepings are mostly leaves and junk, trash. We don't technically have an urban center, so we don't have that deemed restriction. We certainly don't have.
Isn't this considered hazardous material, the street sweepings? And
It's
the drainage?
considered to have restricted uses. The beneficial use determination through testing and through plans would be approved by DEP, and then you do continual testing to determine what the restrictions would be or can be. If you don't do that, it's very limited what you can do. You basically have to send it to a landfill, and they use it as cap material, and that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, it's a regulatory alternative to having to ship your stuff off-site to a regulated landfill, like Sean's saying.
It's become more costly because the state has shut down all the landfills. The state of Massachusetts doesn't allow landfills anymore. So 15, 20 years ago, if you had a material that was restricted to only be used as cap material for a landfill, there was more of them, so it wasn't as expensive. I believe the last few years, ours have been going to Rhode Island, so, you know, we're hauling it, and then you pay a tipping fee to dump it, and
So what kind of beneficial use is it? Is it like road base, or what are they telling you to do with it?
we don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
There's various uses. Catch basin cleanings come out of the catch basin almost as pure loam. They're just rotten leaves.
Yeah.
So you may be able to compost them. The street sweepings could never be used under a road, but they could be used under other things. We'll find out once we know how clean they are.
Yeah, the catch basins often have petroleum hydrocarbons mixed into it that come from vehicle droppings and spills and stuff on the pavement, because the catch basins often collect stormwater off the pavement itself.
Right.
And that leads to it being classified as hazardous. And it's very hard to extract that from the material without incurring a lot of expense.
Right.
So that's why you're testing it, right?
That's why we're testing it. It's fairly common. There's a handful of towns around here that are doing it.
Okay.
And
What's
we're
next?
working through that. First with the street sweepings, and then the catch basin, they're two completely different things. So if we're successful with one, we may go after the other before
Okay.
we get rid of the material. Obviously, winter's coming, so we've been getting everything set up, repaired. Already brought the sand and salt in under a state contract, and we put the sand out to bid, awarded that contract. We have our contractors lined up. And one thing we're still in the midst of working on with the Cemetery Commission is that another capital project that was voted this year was a lot of drainage work in the cemetery. So when I came on board, I met with the engineer and David Williams and Sue Tyler to look at some of the work and see how much of the work we might be able to do in-house to save the town some money. There's some we can't do, but there's certainly some we can, especially if we have a light winter and it doesn't freeze solid and we can go up there, keep some of the equipment busy.
Sean, in the past, we've had some concerns about lining up plowing contractors How is that going so far this year?
We had some concerns up until basically this week. I finally crossed that threshold and think we have enough. We were a little late running the ad. There's a lot of towns are having trouble finding guys. A couple towns around have been running flashing signs, looking for contractors and posting stuff, so. We spent a little money on a bigger ad, which didn't result in anybody responding other than people we already had until this past week. We got one guy and he's got 4 trucks, so we think that'll help.
Great. Good, thanks for the update. Anybody else have? All right, good. That's great. So that's, do we have any town administrator reports,
No, I don't.
selectmen reports? No? Okay. So we have an executive session. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
I was watching you guys on TV, so I heard the discussion of Articles 4 and 5, and it was the understanding of some people that I was going to treat the discussion of those together. But since the advisory committee hearing, I've done a little bit more research into parliamentary procedure, did some thinking, and since both of those articles deal with negative motions, I've decided that I want to address them individually. So the discussion will be separate. We'll deal with Article 4, see what happens, deal with Article 5, see what happens. So if you are, I wanted to let you know that. And also, it's mostly in case it would change your mind about what you wanted to do as far as presentations.
I wonder how that works unless you're gonna, are you gonna call comments about Article 5 out of order during Article 4 discussion?
No, I'm going to talk about Article 4, and then we'll talk about Article 5.
No, my point is if someone during the Article 4 discussion refers to Article 5, are you gonna call that out of order?
Well, I
Because it
don't
doesn't
know.
make sense to call it out of order because the two are intrinsically linked.
Well, I don't know that they're intrinsically linked.
Oh, I think they are.
If you want 4, you vote for it. You first, you defeat
I
the negative
think that-
motion, and then if
yeah,
you want
I-
5, something else. So they're 2 separate articles. One puts forth one means of recall, the other puts forth another means of recall.
You can't talk
If
about
you-
5 during 4. How are you gonna know one puts forth one and one puts forth the other?
Well, they're getting the advisory report, and people will be talking about it, and presumably, if there's a negative presentation by the opposition to 4, they are certainly welcome to bring up Article 5 and say, this is in the formal presentation of the negative thing. I don't want to get into back and forth where people are talking about Article 4, and then the next person gets up and talks about Article 5, and then we're back to Article 4 and Article 5, so.
We
Yeah,
could vote
that's-
both of them positive and come out with both.
You could, but you're going to have to take separate votes anyway, so that's regardless of any.
Double negatives.
You can have, they can both go down in flames, they can, I suppose technically, they could both pass, but then that's someone else's problem. But, we will be discussing them separately.
Well, if somebody wants to do a comparison between the two, kind of go through and say, here are the differences, where does that get allowed?
That's the good question.
That would be the proponent for, well, I guess it would be, people will need to promote their own article as they see fit. In other words, I think that whatever the differences are, there are, in Article 4, the reasons are as stated on the petition. In Article 5, there are 3 possibilities for recall. I think people who are interested in doing it for any reason want to talk about the virtues of that. people who are in favor of doing it for only 3 reasons want to talk about the virtues of that, and then the people will vote, and they will vote Article 4 up or down, and they will vote Article 5 up or down. Presumably, if they think that Article 5 is the best choice, they're going to vote Article 4 down, or they're going to vote positively on the negative motion.
Right, I'm not talking about how they're voting, I'm talking about how does a speaker, under what category does a speaker say, here's why Article 5 is better than Article 4?
When Article 5 comes up,
Yeah, that makes no sense, Mary.
It-
I mean, respectfully, that makes absolutely no sense, because they're
well, if someone,
compare and contrast. That's the whole point of having the 2 articles.
well, presumably, the point of the 2 articles are people want a recall article, or they wouldn't have put a recall article on the warrant. And if you are in favor of one type, you're going to vote for number 4.
Because again,
And if
it's
you're-
not about the voting. Paul's right. It's not about the voting.
Well-
It's about the structure of the presentations.
I
and
don't
the discussion.
want going back and forth among the people who are speaking to both.
One
Which-
argument for doing it that way, though, is the worst-case scenario is Article 4 passes and Article 5 passes, and that makes no sense. And I don't know how that gets resolved. So discussing the 2 of them together, I think, helps force people to make a decision.
It may well, people have to make a decision anyway. I mean, there's no insurance that both won't pass regardless of how the discussion takes place. I mean, that's, clearly, people will vote the way they're going to vote. I would consider, I guess, for the presentation section, if people want to use a comparison, because, for example, when you're talking about the EA articles, the preliminary plan, you're comparing what is going to be there if the article doesn't pass with what would be there if the article passes. So that's making a comparison. That's in a formal presentation. I just want to keep the entities separate, and mostly because we're dealing with 2 negative motions. It's quite possible that if a negative motion is defeated on either article, a positive motion would then be made. I think if this is all a ball of wax, it's going to be more difficult for people to decide how to vote where, when they want what. So,
And conceivably, you could have, like the Brexit situation, a negative motion, the no action motion gets turned down,
correct,
then a follow-up motion to approve it gets turned down.
correct.
I mean, it's,
Yes, yes, you could. And assuming that the first one is Article 4, obviously, so then Article 4 is done with. Move on to Article 5. Maybe there is a negative, the negative motion gets defeated there. Maybe the positive motion passes, maybe the positive motion gets defeated. I want to keep them separate, but, I mean, you're right, in the sense that people are going to be thinking about both of them, perhaps, or maybe not. Maybe people just don't want a recall article, or maybe they want this one, or maybe they want that one. So I just wanted to clear that up for people.
It
so
didn't clear up, but thank you.
Yeah, well, whatever, that's what's going to happen, so.
All right. Thanks, Mary. All right, so can we adjourn to executive session now?
Can we set another meeting date, Mike? For after
December
December
6th.
6th, for after that date?
No, I think after that, we're not meeting anymore.
That's it. We're done.
That's it?
Then we're done.
Oh, you guys all think I'm kidding.
Christmas Eve.
What date after that, Diane?
Well, towards the middle of December, maybe?
December 25th?
Yep. Ho, 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 you got it.
What date you're talking about?
I don't have a date in mind. The calendar, can we see the calendar? Oh, God. So, I don't know, oh boy, the 6th? I don't know, maybe the 19th?
So I have down,
Maybe the 19th of
Prefer to
December?
not do the 14th.
that's the day I already have down in my
Is what?
schedule, is the 14th. I think we talked about it at one point.
Did we?
Yeah, you could do that.
So,
He made that up.
no, it's right there.
Never.
That's
Do
right.
one of those will work.
How about the 19th? Tuesday, the 19th?
What?
I say the 14th, I'm out
I
of
wouldn't go to the
town.
week of the 19th. The 14th, what?
I'm out of town, but that's the joy of
I gotta
having a five-member board.
cook
You can
for
still
all
meet
the-
without me.
Well, I shouldn't really do it either. I gotta cook dinner for the fire department. Once a year.
Still
I don't
burn.
get the beef.
Once a year.
How was the 19th?
Can you do the 13th? You'll still be out of town.
13th works for me, but
That's next week, though. I mean, we don't really have enough stuff to
I
do by
know.
next week.
So
That's
the
not next week.
19th,
Well, that's the
maybe?
next week after town
how about
meeting.
the 19th or the 20th?
We're not gonna have enough stuff a week after the town meeting, I don't think.
No, but we
Unless
shouldn't
we
go the
start-
whole
unless we
month of
start getting
December.
into
There's gonna be
budgeting.
a warrant, there's gonna be stuff.
I mean, unless we
Yeah.
start getting into budgeting, so.
I would be running around doing meetings a few days before the Christmas holidays.
So what'd you say, the 19th, Chuck?
Yeah, 19th and 20th
Does that
both
work
work
for
for me.
people?
That whole week works.
19,
Oh, I'm sorry, not the Thursday again. It doesn't work.
The 19th.
Can
Well,
people
he's
make,
talking 19th, that's Tuesday.
yeah,
Yeah,
can people make the
the-
19th work?
I can. Paul?
Works for me.
All right, I'll go along with everybody. Reluctantly.
Maybe we bail on it if
Does the 20th work better for you, Paul?
No, that whole week, that's when you can't find a parking space at the mall and you're fighting
I know,
off
so we'll
hordes
have
of
parking
people.
spaces here, we got extra spaces.
You guys maybe don't do any shopping.
Near the mall. What are you talking about?
What?
I don't go near the mall.
I know, what's he talking about?
There's a service
that's
called
what Amazon was.
Amazon.com, Chuck.
Cyber Monday.
Thank you,
can
Mr.
do- you can
Bezos.
do it.
All right, great, and we're not meeting at 7 AM, so I should change that time
No,
on my
you should
calendar.
change that.
All right. We're gonna do 6:30 again?
Yeah.
All right. All right, thank you, everybody. Okay.
Okay.
I move the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session under Chapter 38, Section 21.3, Section 21.2, and Section 21A3 for the following: collective bargain negotiations under Chapter 38, Section 21.3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation, police officers union, strategizing, negotiating employment agreements under Chapter 38, Section 21.2, discuss negotiations with non-union personnel, Lieutenant David Bento and Chief Richard Thompson, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position, and the chair so declares pursuant to Chapter 38, Section 21A3 and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM with respect to the following pending case, Stevens versus Board of Health.
Where we-
Having these discussions in open session may have a detrimental effect on the outcome. Is that this?
No, you.
Well, this is what you gave me.
Packet.
Oh, this is the one you gave me.
You don't have Stevens and Board of Health on there, do you?
Oh, I'm reading the wrong one.
I thought we were just doing the police collective.
This is
bargaining.
great. It's going to be much shorter than I thought. Okay, let's do this again. Executive session, Chapter 38, Section 21.3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares police department union.
There you
And that's
go.
it.
That's it.
I'm glad you're here, Diane. The board will return, not return. The board will not return to open session, and I need a second and a roll call vote. Anybody going to second this?
Second.
Mr. Yan, second. Roll call vote. Mr. Durensis?
Aye.
Mr. Yan?
Aye.
Mr. Jima, aye. And Mr. Clean?
Nay.
Nay?
Well, I'm
Are you going to recuse?
accusing.
Okay, Sean's recusing, okay. Having passed by a vote of 3-0 with one abstaining, the open session is now closed. We will not return to open session. We are now in executive session.
Aye.